They say when a baby is born, so is a mother. But while you are there to help your baby grow into the person he or she is meant to be, who is there to help you? Many women feel lost and alone when they become mothers, wondering, who am I now? Sometimes it feels like the transformation from woman to mother is as radical as a caterpillar's transformation into a butterfly. Did you know that inside the chrysalis, the caterpillar literally turns into goop before it rearranges itself into a butterfly? This podcast is about the goop, what soul transformation looks like as you transition from being a woman to a mom. Your baby's growth matters, but yours does too. You're not alone. I'm your host, Brittany Ming. Welcome to the Motherhood Metamorphosis.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Motherhood Metamorphosis. I'm your host, Brittany Ming, and today we are talking to Emily Roussell. Emily is the author of Rock You Tonight, a lullaby-style picture book written for new babies and moms. She's a mom to 4 and wife to her best friend. She's a speech-language pathologist by degree, but as motherhood has grown and changed her, she's become a writer by passion and pursuit. Welcome, Emily. I'm so glad to talk to you today.
I'm so glad to be here, Brittany. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. So when we were chatting about what to talk about, you sent me an article that you had written on Facebook. And I wondered if I could read a little bit of it before we get started into this conversation. So you wrote, some of us have a whole army of kids. Some of us have one. Some of us have parents that live nearby and regularly pitch in. Some of us have zero family support. Some of us have an awesome partner that truly shares the load. Some of us are flying solo. Some of us have kids that are great sleepers and born helpers. Some of us have kids that need us in much bigger ways. And despite all these differences, there's not one of us in the lot that's getting through this parenting thing unscathed. It's hard no matter what.
Yes.
Yeah, so tell me about what inspired you to write this article, and really what the main premise, what you were writing about, was this idea of being supermom, right?
Yeah, exactly. So those words actually, those are my best attempt at paraphrasing my very first friend that I ever made in motherhood, my very first mom friend. And she was, how sometimes just the right person comes into your path at just the right time. And you just don't even realize how badly you needed that person until you look back later and just realize how huge they were in helping to lay your path forward. And she was that for me in motherhood. Absolutely. I think I came into motherhood after a lot of loss. And, so I think that for me, my whole context, I had, our first were twins. But leading up to our twins, we had 3 pregnancy losses. And then the twins pregnancy was very, it was complicated and I would say near loss. And so by the time we finally had those babies in our arms and we had them, I think my whole context for motherhood was so much fear and so much, how can I control this and what can I do? I maybe if I just try to do everything right, I can somehow hang on and, try to prevent further loss. I know that I was operating intensely out of fear, and how can I, just try to do it all right, I guess. Maybe if I do it all right, then somehow it'll be okay. And so I think I came into motherhood really kind of a mess, very anxious, very wound up, very, looking around and taking everybody else in. And, am I doing what she's doing? Am I doing what she's doing? Is she doing it better than me? What else should I be doing? And so this friend of mine, she had twins also, but her twins were her last of 4. So when I met her, my twins were about 8 months old, and her twins were about the same age, but she also had an 8-year-old and a 3-year-old. So she had already been mothering for 8 years. She was just, she was seasoned at that point, she was far enough along into motherhood to be confident in her role. And she seemed relaxed. She seemed at ease. she seemed happy. And I think sometimes motherhood can be weird like that. I was so happy. I was so grateful, and I was so lost, and I was so exhausted. And yeah, so I'll never forget walking into the park. I met her at a park on a play date, or just a random park play date. And I felt like I pushed my double stroller in there, like just barely getting by. And, kind of internally just feeling like a mess. And then I look over and she's like throwing the ball to her 8-year-old son and pushing her 3-year-old on the swing and like singing and kind of rocking her twins that were in the stroller. And everything about her was just like at ease and comfortable and confident. And I was just like, I need that in my life. Like, I need you in my life. And so, yeah, so she really became a mentor, also a friend. And so those were her words. And it really came out of, just, I think all of that pent up, negative, fearful based energy that I had kind of brewing on the inside. Why do I feel like I'm always feeling? I don't, I don't feel like I'm ever getting any of this right. And, I'm looking around and it looks like everybody else somehow has it together. And I'm like constantly falling on my face. And this isn't what I pictured motherhood to be. This isn't what I imagined. And, look at you, look at her. And, she just, like I said, she had this very relaxed confidence about her. And she just looked me dead in the eye. And she said, you want to know the truth about supermoms is that there are none, that this is hard for everyone. And then she went on to kind of list what you had read about, we all are bringing to the table all of these vastly different variables. And yet somehow we can't help ourselves from comparing, I'm looking at you and I'm just like feeling my dullest spots so intensely. And then I look over at you and all I see is just your shiniest,
Mhm.
and meanwhile, you might be doing the same. And it's just this kind of trap that I think we can fall into in motherhood. And that we just lose sight of that, we're comparing such, our variables tend to be so different. It doesn't even make any sense to compare our situations, that they're just so vastly different. But I think that she just was, just the way that she could communicate in such like a calm, clear, like, look, this is how it is. There are no super moms.
Mhm.
And, that is a myth. And, we all have our hard and we all have our great, and it's all vastly different. And yeah, I just, every now and then somebody says something to you and they just say it so assuredly that you're like, I just believe you. Um, and I think she was just, I will always be so grateful to her, because I had a lot of that motherhood goop in that season of my life. And she was the one who kind of pulled me through that.
Yeah. Yeah. So many things resonated with me as you were talking. Well, one, I have twins and they're my oldest.
Yeah.
And I also started my motherhood journey with a lot of fear because we had a difficult pregnancy where they were not doing very well in utero, and we saw a lot of specialists and we were just wanting them to live.
Right.
And
Yes.
then they were in the NICU. So I started off very anxious
Right.
and wanting to do things right. And I didn't have a lot of other women in my life who were speaking, other mothers. I was like the
Yes.
first one of my friends who got married, the first one who
Yes.
had kids.
Same. Right.
So I was very much alone and trying to forge my own path. So hearing that you had this mother came along you and give you truth, I think that's so important. I think it's
Yes.
also, yeah, I think it's also really interesting to look at these narratives that we build for ourselves that are founded in fear.
Right. Right.
And I think that the supermom myth, sometimes we think that that can be one that's maybe empowering, like this is an ideal that we're supposed to attain, or this is like an accolade that we give to other women.
Right. Right.
But ultimately, I think that is a narrative that's built in fear,
Mm-hmm.
because it's this idea that I can never do what she does, I'm always
Right.
failing,
Right.
or that woman, she's untouchable, like,
Mm-hmm.
or this ideal that we can never measure up.
Right.
But it's something that we want. It's like I want to be the woman who has it all. I
Right.
want to be the woman who has the perfect house and the like powerhouse career, and the
Right.
kids who are healthy and well behaved, and the marriage that's, friendly and sexy, like all
Right.
these things that we
Yeah.
think of, but everybody is normal.
Right. Yes. Yes. We all have our mess.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I sometimes I just think it's, we hold like the vision of the supermom up on such a pedestal. And then really when you look at it, we're like, what are we doing to these women? That it's sort of like, how much can you carry, but don't look like you were carrying it,
Right.
you know? And it just, I mean, it's not healthy.
It's
And
especially, yeah, not mentally
right,
healthy, and then ultimately it
right.
affects your health. I mean, it affects so many things when we have this ideal. I have a friend who's a young mom. She's two little toddlers right now. And she sent me a TikTok the other day, and it was the same woman but playing two different characters. And one of them was a mom who is holding a newborn and has very
Yeah,
classy eyes, and just hair is kind of a mess. And the other one is a woman who's put together, and she's like, "Oh, you're just super mom, you're just amazing."
right.
And it flips to the mom with the baby, and she's like, "No, I'm actually really struggling." And
Yes, yeah,
the other one says, "Oh, but you're doing so well, like,
right,
I don't know how you do it, you're just amazing, super mom." And the other one's like, "No, I need help, can you help
right,
me?" And it's
right.
just this narrative of like not listening. I
Yes,
think there's like women, especially, I think the narrative is shifting a bit in culture, where women are speaking their truth and they're saying, "Hey, I'm struggling." Other people are resonating with that and saying, "Yeah,
yeah,
you're not alone." But then there's this all other narrative, I think, especially through the pandemic, of women are amazing, they can do everything. Like,
right,
look what super moms you are.
right.
But
And
it's like they're refusing to see the
yes,
struggle in
yeah.
front of them. Have you seen
I
that? Or
absolutely. And I think I can even relate that to going back to that story that, I felt like in those early months of motherhood, I was drowning, but I was also getting praised. And, I think one of the like most influential pieces of my, this friendship with my friend Adrienne was she wasn't praising it. She was calling it out and, saying that, this, I know what you're doing. And your mindset, though you're thinking about it, is all wrong. And you're great and you're enough. And you wake up every day like ready to just pour into your kids, whatever your situation is in your context of your family. um, you know Women are waking up and they're just a go. We're just ready to give it literally everything you have and then more. The pressure to try to fill that supermom role. I think part of the problem is that we are getting praised for it. We are getting reinforced with it, and it's a I we care about the job that we're doing. We want to do a good job. We want to do the best job. It's like it's the job that we will like care about the most in our entire life. And we want to do it well. When people see us, juggling all these things and you know, maybe not seeing the underlayers that we're not showing so intensely, but we're really struggling. And we're getting praised for kind of that outward appearance of how we're managing it. And then there's just this cycle to just try to keep going and keep going. And, inwardly, you're just like, I'm falling apart. And that I was just saying that going back to my friend, that was what was so helpful to me is that she didn't reinforce it. And here was somebody who I looked at and I held in such high esteem, that I felt like I had come into motherhood, really this like tight ball of anxiety and fear. And what I saw in her was just a relaxed, easy confidence. And, so it was especially powerful to hear it from her of just calling it out. She wasn't holding this up on a pedestal.
Mhm.
It was like, no, not a one of us is really doing the supermom thing.
Mhm. Yeah, she called it out for like, this is a toxic ideal.
Yes. Right.
Yeah. And I think that hearing what you're saying, like she gave you truth instead of praise, and
Right.
that made
Right.
you feel validated.
Yes. Yes.
And then
Yeah.
I was thinking about that TikTok, and I was thinking encouragement is never a substitute for support,
Right. Yes.
and
Yes.
praise is never a substitute for truth.
Right. Yeah.
And so I
Truth.
think that sometimes we in our own heads we have these ideals and society has the ideals, but I think we get it wrong a lot, and it leaves women feeling unvalidated in their struggle, and also striving for ideals that are beyond any woman's ability to
Right.
fulfill.
And really just stuck, I love your concept of, for the show of, you know, seasons of motherhood, being goopy
Yeah.
and, coming out of that, on the other side, really, having transformed and grown, and changed. And because I think there are so many times in motherhood that we go through different types of goop.
Yes.
Um, and yeah, I think kind of that, false narrative just perpetuates you staying there and
Yeah.
just being stuck. And what you really need is truth and support, exactly what you said, to try to get pulled through it.
Hmm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that we can, especially when we're in that really transformational or transitional time, like new motherhood, or
Yes.
maybe when our last baby's born, like for myself, like,
Yeah.
what am I doing now? I think that we can, instead of acknowledging our transition is hard and we don't know who we are, I think that we cling to models that we think we should fulfill, almost like a mold, like that
Right.
supermom mold. Like,
Right.
if I can just fit myself into this mold, I'll know who I am.
Yes.
But that mold, nobody fits that mold. It's like a Barbie
Right.
doll, like
Right.
nobody
Right.
has a Barbie doll body. Nobody has that long of legs. Nobody
Right.
has that big of boobs.
Yes.
Like, nobody has that perfect hair. But if we keep trying to fit that mold, we never feel like we measure up. But I think
Yes.
we can
Yeah.
acknowledge that, like, my transformation hurts right now or feels really uncomfortable, but I have to just wait it out to see who I become. I
Yeah.
think that that can give strength and honesty to that transition and that struggle, because I'm sure it took you time to feel like your calm, confident self
Yes.
that you saw
Absolutely.
in that other mom.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
when did you start feeling like more of yourself in your motherhood journey? Like, from that time, that park date,
Yeah. I know.
time.
I just love that we just, randomly met at the park like that. Actually, several of my friendships from early motherhood started out that way.
Me
I love
too.
it.
I love that
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Um, I would say probably maybe a year or so after I met her, when we first had our twins, we were living away from family. So we had just moved to this new town. We didn't have any, I didn't have any friends there yet. It felt very isolated and, alone. And then you throw in, being a brand new mother on top of that. And especially with this context of loss kind of preceding all of that. My twins were born in August, and I remember feeling like it was the longest winter of my life. It was just the dark, cold, alone. Like we had kind of been like hibernating with these two little infants, like, all winter. And I remember when the sun came out in the spring, like, okay, it's time to like reemerge and see people. And she was the very first, but then it really, that friendship grew, and, as they do, one friendship tends to lead to another, and kind of grows. And I think it really was just building like a sense of community for motherhood, and feeling like all of a sudden, okay, I have support and somebody who can say, yeah, me too. Like, I get it. I've been there. I also didn't sleep for the last 3 nights in a row, or, whatever it might be, just to have somebody else say like, you're not crazy. This is normal. So yeah, I think really just kind of establishing those friendships and, building more confidence in myself. I would say probably, I don't know, it kind of took maybe a year or so after kind of like that first meeting with her to like grow into enough of that confidence in myself to like feel like, okay, I own this now.
Yeah. I
Um,
think that's a really good, I think it's really good for you to say that it took a year, and they were already 8 months old by that time. So they're like,
right.
they
Yeah.
could be almost 2. So I
Hmm.
think that, I mean, that's not going to be everybody's timeline, but for a mom who be maybe listening to this and they're deep in that goop and deep in
Hmm.
that,
Right.
those early months, those early years, saying like, hey, don't expect for you to feel like you know who you are before
Right.
almost 2 years or more have
Yeah.
passed, and giving
I-
yourself the grace to be like, the reason I'm feeling uncomfortable is because this is really uncomfortable. Like,
Yes. Yes. Right. And, one of the other things I think I wrote in that little article, because my friend is so wise, but she went on to say, like when she made that statement to me, I believed her in that moment. It's like, when did you feel like you kind of were starting to come to the other side? Like, even like, yes, it was a process, but even in that moment, I believed her
yeah,
and I felt better, even just in that immediate moment. But then she added, just because, kind of just because you're hearing this message now, like we're going to struggle with this always, forever. Like this comparison game that we do in motherhood and life, like you can be feeling clear, like, okay, I just shook off that goo, I just got rid of that, like I feel good right now, I can, I'm can see clear, and this is good. But it's like some of the goop still clings to you, and you're going to go through other times where you're going to start to go back to that. And she made this comment that, I don't know if we can ever avoid it completely, but at least we can start to recognize it when we start to go down that path, and, try to catch ourselves and remind ourselves that this is false. This is not true.
mhm,
And I'm comparing myself to, variables that are not even mine. And so maybe not necessarily that, it's not like I got through and then I never compared myself ever again. That's definitely not the case. Um, but I think what has changed is that I can catch myself. I, can start to recognize it, and I don't get as lost in it anymore.
mhm. Yeah, I was even just thinking about that today because it's fall break right now for my kids. And I just have this narrative in my head that they shouldn't be on screens all day. We need to be doing fun things
Right.
outside the house. And I'm failing if I don't meet that ideal,
Right.
and that I'm not being a good mom for some reason. And so, and I have to check my thinking. I am like, no, it's okay that they're at the house. It's
Right. Right.
raining all day. Like, we can't exactly go, to the park or whatever. I
Right.
would make them go outside and ride bikes before it started raining. And I'm like, okay, good job, mom.
Yes.
Got
Check that box.
got some points there. And then I realized that my almost 9-year old, I like gave him a hug and I'm like, you have a fever. Now
Oh
you have to go to
no.
bed. And so like one of my kids is in bed with a fever right now. And I'm like,
Uh,
you don't even know. Like, you can plan all these things and you can be like, this is what we're gonna do for a fun fall break. And then your child gets sick and you have to pivot. And
yep.
so it's just this matter of speaking truth to yourself and transitioning when you need to
Right.
transition your plans or yourself or your identity or whatever it may be, big or
Yeah.
small. But yeah, so it's not like you said, it's not like you have it all figured out by year 2. Now I am my new
Right.
self. Now I
Yes,
figured this
exactly.
out. Like my oldest, my twins are 14. And so like
Oh my
I'm
goodness.
14 years into this game and I'm still having to like battle that super mom ideal in my own head and call
Right.
it out for being toxic and being like,
Yeah.
no, I'm
Yeah.
still a good mom, even if we don't have all
Right.
these plans for fall break.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's good. This is a great conversation. I'm so glad we're
Uh,
talking about this. I think this is really needed because even though I think the culture's gotten better about supporting moms and allowing women to speak into their hardship, that false narrative comes up so much. And I think that we can
yes.
battle
Yeah.
these thoughts so much. So
Absolutely.
what would you tell another woman? We've talked about a lot of good things, but what would you tell another woman who is dealing with this idea of the supermom myth or trying to find her identity or whatever it may be? What would you tell her?
Um, Gosh, I think a couple of things. I think first I would, look her right in the eye, just like my friend did for me, and say this is false. And, that there is no supermom. That's the secret. And so we just have to stop comparing ourselves to something that doesn't even exist. And then I think I would say it doesn't last forever. you know, that when you're in the goop, it feels like you're going to be there forever. And it can feel really hard and really lonely.
Mhm.
But that, this is a season and you're going to come out of this. And I think that's an especially important message for new moms who may be experiencing some of that, the intensity of those hard feelings for some of the first time and
Mhm.
feel like, is this ever going to clear?
Right.
Um,
This is going to be my life forever. This is how I will
yeah,
feel forever.
right,
I
right.
felt that way. I'm like,
I definitely felt like that.
this is my
Yeah.
life now.
Yes, yes. I think that's why it was so, I mean, I keep going back to talking about that park play date, but I think that was so like why it just meant so much, even to just stand across the park and observe her before we even had a conversation and just see somebody do motherhood in such a different way. Like she's relaxed, like that she sort of represented hope to me,
Yes.
and so I think that would be my message is that if you are in a hard season, if you are, feeling really stuck, that that's not going to last forever. It really is not. And the other piece of that I think I would add is find community. And, like I said about, kind of being like hibernating alone that winter when our twins were first born. I think part of like being, feeling so just mentally stuck and down was I was by myself
Mhm.
and the only voice I had in my head was my own.
Yeah.
And when the spring came and we got outside and, I started to meet other women and other moms and develop that sense of community. It saved my mindset. It really did.
Mhm.
And just being able to kind of have this like shared experience. I think motherhood really is meant to be shared, and that the sisterhood is so, so important to motherhood. And, if you're feeling stuck, to like push yourself to try to find community, good community, somebody that is going to be, a really positive voice to you. And, I know that's not always easy, but I think it's always worth it.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
agree. So go to the park and meet somebody where
Yes, yes.
you can make good friends.
I mean, I remember at the time that felt like such a big deal. I look back and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe like I almost didn't make it to the park that day. I mean, like it felt like such a big, big deal. I know everything can feel really big and hard, especially in that season, but I'm so glad that I did.
Mhm.
And sometimes it does taking like pushing yourself to, um, you know, like if you want community in your life, then you have to be part of it.
All right. So to end our time, I like to ask these rapid fire questions to guests, and they're all
Oh
just for
goodness.
fun. So
Okay.
are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Which Disney princess would you want to take out for coffee?
Oh, Anna. I like
Love
her
it.
energy.
Yeah, me too. What's one thing you must have on your nightstand?
Oh, I have a little football guy that one of my sons gave me, and a little note my daughter gave me when she was like 4, and just like the little knickknacks, the little like gifts from the kids. They're all right there. I love them.
Oh, that's so sweet. I love that too. What's your go-to treat after the kids go to bed?
Chocolate. No hesitation.
Gotta have chocolate. Yeah. What's an ordinary moment that brings you great joy?
Oh my goodness. I think just sitting back and observing my kids play. Our kids tend to play a lot outside in the yard. They spend like their whole life going back and forth between our yard and our next door neighbors. And I think that's my favorite, when they're just like really engaged in something outside and like just looking out the window and like observing that from afar.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, you're actually getting along.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Right.
I like that too. You're like, all right. Last show you binged and loved.
Oh goodness. It's a tie. Schitt's Creek and Ted Lasso.
Yes.
I love them both, and like just need that joy. It's like if you're going to commit to something on TV, like better be happy.
Yes. And low pressure. It's not a lot of drama. It's not
Right. Yeah.
It's just like you can laugh and like
Yes.
you're like, yeah.
I've definitely gotten to that point in my life. Like there's too much heavy in the real world. Like when I'm take a minute to watch something on TV, it's gotta feel good.
Yeah, you gotta escape.
Yeah.
If you run out of this besides milk, you have to go to the store.
Oh goodness. I'll say seltzer. My kids are like seltzer obsessed.
Yeah, do they drink it plain, or like do you put flavoring in it?
They like it flavored. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun. Who makes you laugh?
I would say my kids right now, like, it's always the baby of the family, right? So right now, my 6-year-old is like the heavy comedian in the family.
Yeah, I think that my 2-year-old is my youngest, and she is a ham, and I think it's because she has so many people to laugh at her.
Yes,
She does
right.
funny things, and she's like, oh, I gotta work this angle.
Yeah, they own it. Yes.
And they get fun. They do more and more funny things.
Exactly.
They
Yeah.
have the biggest audience.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, texting or talking?
Oh, texting. Texting. Yeah.
It's quick.
Or if I could talk to somebody in person, but I'm in like a mess on the phone with no facial cues. I'm
I
like,
know.
I can't do it. I need to see if you're smiling or like,
or at least an emoji. Give me like an emoji.
Right. Yes. Yeah. With text, I can like carefully pick my words and like, and yes, insert the little emoji to, try to make sure like the right feeling is going along with it.
Yeah, I'm the same. What are you looking forward to?
Oh goodness. I'm looking forward to Christmas. Who isn't, right? But I think just as my kids are getting older, I'm like cherishing more and more of like those special times in the family. And yeah, not in like a pressure kind of way, like this has to be perfect, but just in a like, I just want to be together and have like some twinkling lights in the background and like just soak it up as long as we can.
Last one. Finish this sentence. Motherhood is.
Oh goodness. I would say breaking and rebuilding. And I think sometimes it can happen in like the same exact moment even. And those are the times I think that just kind of take your breath away throughout your motherhood journey.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I love that. All right. Thank you so much, Emily, for joining us today. You can find Emily on Facebook at You Are Loved Emily Roussell, or you can pick up a copy of Rocky Tonight in hardcover or Kindle version on Amazon. I will also be posting the link to the article that we referenced today in the show notes. So make sure that you guys check out her article because it's really, really good. Thanks, Emily. I really loved our conversation.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Motherhood Metamorphosis. If you've enjoyed this episode, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to this channel so you never miss an episode. Next, tell your friends. Podcasts are a slow growth type of social media, so promo works best when it's from person to person. If you know another mom who's in the goop right now, send her a text of encouragement and the link to the episode that is speaking to your heart right now. If you have a story about your own matrescence, the physical, emotional, hormonal, and social transition that occurs when someone becomes a mother, please leave a comment below. I want this channel to be a place where women can build community about the challenges and joys of their own motherhood metamorphosis. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope it encouraged you and gave you some good food for thought. If you ever have any questions, comments, or you'd like to reach out to me personally, you can email me at brittanyaming@gmail.com.
Are you getting a visitor?
Yes. What is it, buddy? What do you need? Give. Okay. Also, I need to have a little time by myself so I can have this interview, okay? Can you ask your brothers?
Benji might go home with me.
Okay, COMMAND. Okay, this is the last one I can do for now. You have to wait until later, okay?